Welcome to the Forging Wellness Podcast, where we go beyond the basics of health and wellness to build stronger minds, bodies, and communities. I'm your host, Jesse Clark, a firefighter, paramedic, and coach with 19 years as a first responder. I have a passion for this job, for my family, and for truly enjoying life. But I'll be the first to admit I haven't always gotten it right. I've had my ups and downs, made mistakes, and learned some lessons the hard way. But that's what this podcast is all about, learning, growing, and forging a better path together. We're diving into mental and physical health, fitness, nutrition, sleep, leadership, real-world challenges, history, and what it truly takes to thrive. Whether you're a current first responder, aspiring to be one, retired, or the spouse of one, this is for you. Life is more than just making it through the day. Let's forge ahead together. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Forging Wellness. This is episode 8 with Dustin Baisdon. He is out of Modesto, California, works with the Modesto Fire Department. Super excited to have him on. Dustin, give us a little introduction.
So my name's Dustin Baisdon. I work for the Modesto Fire Department here in Modesto, California. Firefighter at Station 3, over our engine ops, cadre. I'm on our peer support team, and I'm our academy fitness lead. Basically, I write all the workouts for our academy. I'm a husband, I'm a father. Yeah, I like my fitness. I like my job, my family. It's pretty much everything about me.
Yeah, really that's a lot of full-time stuff there, because being a trainer, being a programmer, having done that myself, I know how challenging it can be to program on your time off, just because you want it all to mesh together and work well together. So that way, you take into account certain weeks like RIT week, when we're going to be heavy in, guys and gals are going to be gassed. So it takes a lot of planning and preparation to do programming. I know that can be a lot. So let's start with that. Let's start with balance. How do you find yourself getting some balance and wearing all those different hats?
It's not easy, and it's always, every season is completely different. So what my balance looks like now might not be what it looks like a couple weeks from now, a month from now, tomorrow. So it's just constantly checking in on, everything, work, family, making sure that everyone's good, something's not good. Where are we missing? Where are we not seeing eye to eye? And just constant communication. Communication kind of fixes everything, makes it all better.
Yeah, communication is key. It's challenging for everybody, but as you already told me, your wife is a nurse. She works night shift, so she's on similar shift work in the sense that it's long hours and she's on her feet for long periods of time. My wife is in a similar situation. She's a paramedic for the next county over. So we understand that it's tough to find that balance sometimes with managing passing the child off to each other and all the other things, because we both want to be good at our work and give what we can into that, but we also want to dump as much into our family as possible. So it's a lot, but I think what you hit on there is perfect. Communication is 100% key. And I say that knowing that I have struggled with that at times. Communication is not my strong suit. So thankful that my wife has the ability to help keep us on track with that from time to time.
Yeah, my wife would say the same thing. I am at times not the best communicator, but she always gives me plenty of grace, and she's the rock of our family for sure. Keeps us all in line.
And you said she's a pediatric nurse, is that right?
She's a ICU nurse.
ICU nurse. Okay. So an ICU nurse, man, that's tough. I mean, that's super awesome. That's very challenging work,
Right.
that critical care of critical patients. So props to her. That is incredible. I'm going to tease our story a little bit here. We're going to talk about your journey from being a brewer to essentially now you're a firefighter and you're helping build future firefighters as well. And that's a pretty incredible story, because that is a decent shift. And I don't know what you did before brewing, but give us a little rundown. You were a brewer for 4 years, but how does someone go from craft beer to working in an engine company?
So first off, brewing was awesome. I loved every second of it. Allowed me to be creative. It was technical. It was problem solving, teamwork. It was awesome. But when you quit drinking, it makes it kind of hard to do. It's kind of like telling a chef, hey, you can't try your food, you can't try your ingredients, and you're trying to put out a product. It doesn't work. So when I made that decision to quit drinking, I kind of knew right away that I wasn't going to be able to brew anymore. I didn't know what my life would look like after. I just knew that drinking was no longer part of the picture for me.
Okay. And what led you to quit drinking?
So in 2019, I got a DUI, and that was I call it my lowest moment. It was my wake up call. Going through something like that definitely makes you look internally. Um, it made me face some things, some issues, some problems that maybe I'd been, trying to hold down, not deal with. Now they were right there and I had to deal with them. And I knew the first step was quit drinking. That was number one. I looked at a lot of the issues and problems that had been going on in my life. And maybe they weren't all centrally related to alcohol, but alcohol played a part in everything I was doing. So I knew that change needed to happen. And like I said earlier, I didn't know what my life looked like going forward. I just knew that drinking wasn't a part of it. And I knew that one problem with my drinking was it was self-serving and everything I was doing was only about myself. So I figured, hey, the best thing I can do is try and, serve others, do something that's not just beneficial to myself, do something that's benefit other people, make a complete 180.
Yeah, that is super inspirational, not only just for firefighters, first responders, but our society, our culture is a lot of people find some identity in drinking, and I will say that obviously first responders tend to fall into that a lot more. And you really made this decision prior to even becoming a firefighter. How has that been? There are a lot of firefighter functions, benefits typically include alcohol. Have you found that challenging in any way, or have you found it more of just a really good opportunity to go into those with being completely clear-minded, and then has that allowed you to have conversations with other firefighters about, because I know every firefighter typically probably asks like, why aren't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are good times and bad times going out, and it's just looking inwardly and trying to realize, like, hey, is this a situation I want to put myself into? Is this not? But I'm pretty good about going out and not having any issues with it. And I would say 90% of the guys know where I'm at, so it doesn't even bug me anymore. They don't ask, but
Yeah.
it is good, not necessarily educationally, but to just talk to people, share my story because you never know what someone else is going through, what someone's dealing with, what they're holding inside. So I like to be open and honest about everything I've gone through because if I could help someone else out to make a change, maybe not necessarily quit drinking or whatever it is they're dealing with, but just maybe make a change or reach out for help. It's all worth it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar circumstance. Definitely don't want to compare anything that I've got with what you've got. But what I found is when you aren't drinking, a lot of those times when we have those like misconceptions or those beliefs that this is going to be tough because a bunch of people are going to ask me about it. I'm not really sure what I'm going to say about it, even if I'm being honest and open about it, right? Like, I don't want to come across the wrong way. But a lot of times when we just have those conversations with people, we might have a few of them, but once we make our stance known of what we're doing, typically it's a non issue. It's more something that we've built up in ourselves than anything else. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let's get into your journey with Get Fit. Now, we have a local Get Fit here in our community as well, but it was started in your area.
Hmm.
And from my understanding, your dad actually originally brought you into that
Yep.
community. But then within a month, you started training people, right? How did that all transpire and happen?
So I had my DUI October 19th, 2019. Maybe October 24th, 25th. I was sitting at home, feeling sorry about myself, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And my dad was a trainer at Get Fit. So he kind of got me off the couch, dragged my butt down to there's a community fundraiser workout for a local girl who had cancer they were raising money for. Got me in the gym. I went and I'm like, all right, I can see this. This is pretty cool. Then I went back with him again, ended up becoming a full-on member the next week. And maybe 2, 3 weeks later, they'd approached me and asked me if, have I ever thought about training? Would I want to possibly be a part of this? And it was funny because that weekend, me and my dad had literally talked about how much Get Fit had done for me just in that short amount of time and how much that was something I wanted to be a part of because I felt like something inside of me was just telling me like, hey, I need to get involved with this. I need to be a part of this community and try and help out whoever I can. So it's funny how everything works out.
I think that's great. I think one of the things that we've talked about in this podcast a number of times is finding that community. And for first responders, sometimes that can be challenging. So typically first responders, fighters, end up finding the community within the brotherhood, right? Like that is 100% gets to be a big part of their identities, but really starting to tell people, hey, community outside of the fire department is extremely important, because when the fire service is no longer there, you have to have that other thing.
Mhm.
And so the fact that you were able to find yourself a community prior to even going into the fire service is very helpful, beneficial. Fitness has been that for a lot of people, of finding that community prior to. And yeah, fitness, a lot of times there ends up being a decent amount of first responders in there. We see people who are motivated by the fitness, who are really good at their fitness. And we know that's something that we want in the fire service as well. And so a lot of times it's a pretty easy transition for somebody who is an athlete or is doing well physically with that to like transition to the fire service. And so I think a lot of times it's kind of this dichotomy relationship between fitness and firefighting and those communities, because it was this similar story for me when I started into CrossFit. I mean, I was already a paramedic at that point, but I had never even really considered fire.
Mhm.
But the owner of my CrossFit gym originally was like, man, you got to come over to the fireside. You would be a perfect fit for everything that we do. And I kind of drug my feet for a long time, but it ended up being a really good transition and an easy transition that made a lot of sense. So tell me then, get fit. That was probably somewhat of a easy thing in the sense that you originally wanted to be a PE teacher,
Yep,
correct?
that was my plan.
Okay. So still similar in the sense that you are teaching people how to be active. So
Okay.
really helping people that want to help themselves. Slightly different, obviously, PE from a fitness community. But tell me about that. So did it fit? Was it your click moment of like, hey, this is what I would really want to kind of be doing anyway?
Yeah, so the second I kinda got on the mic and started leading classes, I loved it. There was no kinda, "Well, this is okay." It was like, no, I loved it right away. I loved the ability to get up there and lead people through a workout, meet them where they're at, listen to their goals, listen to their life story, and try and help them lead a better lifestyle, help them get whether that's more fit, whether they have a marathon, they're training for an event, or they're just a grandparent that wants to be a little more active and help out their grandkids. I loved every second of it, and so that transition from PE teacher to trainer was pretty easy. And then the transition to fire, it was something that I had never thought about. Honestly, had never considered being a firefighter. The owner of Get Fit is a retired firefighter. His brother-in-law's a firefighter. Like you said, there's tons of first responders in the gyms. He approached me one day. He's like, "Hey, me and my wife are talking about you, and have you ever thought about being a firefighter?" I'm like, "No, I never thought about it." And then he just talked about the brotherhood of it. I grew up playing sports, played college baseball, so the brotherhood, the team aspect of it was huge to me. The emphasis on fitness was awesome, and the ability to serve my community and help out. And that was important for me because all that Get Fit did for me, they met me at my lowest, supported me, welcomed me with open arms. And so I wanted to be able to give back directly to this community in Modesto where the gym's at. So it all worked out perfect.
Yeah. I think a lot of times the connection that we see definitely as first responders and trainers is huge. You started with the fitness side of things and then went to the first responder side of things. But either way, I'm sure you've seen that obviously there's two stark differences in those two communities, right? A lot of times in that first responder public service space, we love serving people. We want to help people. We want to do everything that we possibly can for them in their lowest moment, and in hopes that sometimes people will be able to make a change from, and that's not everybody, like not everybody needs to make a change. We're going on emergent situations where people are just hurt and we want to help them. But we also see a lot of people within our community who unfortunately seem to be stuck. We see our regulars who either have a drug dependence problem or an alcohol problem. And we like to have conversations with them, be like, hey, man, maybe this is your wake up moment or whatever it is. And unfortunately, we don't see that change a lot of times. Sometimes we do, but not always. But on the fitness side of things,
You
it
can see
is
that.
really cool to see that the people that are in there are obviously wanting to change. And so now we're just helping facilitate that for them. So it's really nice to see that reward on the other side of things, to where we've got people that are wanting to make those steps and to make themselves better. So it's a really cool thing to see. It's a really cool reward in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you. The ability to see that reward as a trainer is definitely a good feeling being able to see it. 'Cause like I said, we don't always see that on the job.
Yeah. So then the owner of Get Fit, retired fire, planted that seed for you. And what was the moment that he's telling you all these things of potentially where you would be a good fit in the fire department, where you would see some similarities from your team sports and whatnot? But what really kind of solidified it for you?
So I had some buddies that worked at the fire department, did a ride along and just asking questions, picking people's brains. Hey, why do you love the job? Why do you love this department? What would you rather be doing? And everything they were saying just connected with me. The brotherhood, the family aspect of it, the emphasis on serving others, the fitness aspect of it. And in fire, there's so many different areas that you can focus on, specialize in. We're good at a lot of things, but you can really pick one and run with it. And that ability to do a multitude of different things really appealed to me.
Well, it seems to me like, Dustin, you are definitely somebody who likes to, once you find benefit in something, you like to try and give back to it. Get Fit, you did that. Same with the fire service. So you ended up going through academy, got hired on with Modesto Fire. How long after did you jump back into academy and start helping with the fitness?
So I got off probation, and maybe 6 months later, we had an academy coming up, and there was a transition period with our training firefighter, and he had done the workouts forever. And so they're trying to figure out what was going on or what was going to happen with the workouts. And they reached out to a couple of us that had fitness backgrounds and asked for some sample workouts. And I sent in a couple and didn't hear anything. And then a week later, I got a phone call, and it was like, hey, you're the guy. You got, 80 workouts to program over the next 4 months now. So that happened very quickly. And then engine ops happened right within a year of coming off probation.
Every department's a little bit different with that, but are you still actively on the line and then transition temporarily to working with academy, or how does that go for you?
So depending on the academy size, we have anywhere from 1 to 3 academy leads that come offline, go to a 40-hour schedule, and are with the academy every day. I'm still working my normal shifts, and then on off days, I'll go in there, lead the workouts if I'm not able to for overtime mandates or family stuff, other things going on. I have a group message with the lead trainers explaining the workouts, talking through everything. I just send over a video if I need to, demo and moves, and getting them down. And luckily, I've had one of the guys in this last one was the lead trainer for the last two. So that second one, he already knew the drill, didn't really need a rundown.
Okay. So then give us a little bit background where you are now. What station are you at? What's your current position with Modesto Fire?
So I'm a firefighter at Station 3. It's in east side of town, busy area. It's our third busiest station. Stations 1 and 5 are our busiest, downtown and midtown. I'm on the east side, which I love. We have the lower income areas to really some of the higher income areas in our first due. We get veg fires, structures. We're running pretty much all day, every night. So I love it. So a firefighter there, and then I help out with our engine ops. I'm academy fitness lead, and then I'm on our peer support team as well.
Awesome. Peer support. Yes. Let's dive into that a little bit. So, how quickly did you get into the peer support side of things?
Pretty much as soon as I possibly could, I knew we had a peer support team. I planted that seed with our peer support coordinator right away. Just said, hey, whenever there's openings, I'd love to get a part of it. And that was important for me with my past, just recognizing the power that one person can have on someone else's life. So the ability to do that for one of my brothers, one of my sisters at work, really appealed to me.
Yeah, tell me, what has been your experience with peer support on how vital that is for a fire department to have?
I mean, the old stigma of you don't talk about your feelings, you keep everything. We're firefighters, we're tough. That's finally changing. And I think that people just having someone, even if it's just a listening ear, just, hey, I need to vent, I need to get this out, or I want to talk about a call, I got this going on at home. It's so important to talk about those things because a lot of the times when you talk about something, you realize, hey, maybe this isn't as big a deal as I thought. When if you're internalizing everything and never actually putting it out into words, you can build it up into something so much bigger than it is. But the ability to talk about things and get it out can really help you work through things. And then for us, what that looks like is either, a phone call, a text, hey, let's meet up for coffee. Hey, can I come over, talk? We're a listening ear, we're a support. If it's something that we can help out, they need some help outside of work. Hey, they're struggling with family stuff. They don't have time to do things. Whatever that is, if it's something that we can help out right away, we help out however we can. Or if they're looking into services, they need someone more specialized to talk to. We're not clinicians. What we do is we have a background and we know how all of that works for our department with our insurance and everything. And so we can get them pointed in the right direction, get them the help that they need.
You said it perfectly, right? You're a listening ear. You're in between, the one that can really help facilitate them getting where they need to go to get the help that they need. Or potentially, like you said, maybe it's not something that requires that, but just voicing that and putting it out there is obviously very beneficial and healing for a lot of people, because when we say that out loud, right, it allows our brain to process it slightly different way, and even allows peer support members to then take that and even provide some clarity to it. Like if I were to give an example, something that has happened for me, I had my friend who died by suicide at work, and in processing that, I knew a decent amount of things. Like I was able to internally say, there's nothing that I could have done differently or anything like that, or I didn't do anything wrong. But it wasn't really until I said that out loud to somebody that said, I was like, I'm pretty sure that I hesitated in that moment. And them saying back to me, like, well, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? Right. And it was like, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Because, and like I said, it's something that I had thought about in my head already, that it would be normal for anybody in that similar situation to hesitate, but somebody else actually just validating that made it so much more powerful.
Yeah, we're always our own worst critic. And I think that one thing in the fire service, I think that most of us tend to be perfectionists. We don't like failure. We don't like when things don't go according to plan. So when you have things going on, you just are constantly beating yourself up. When you actually talk to someone and let it out and get some outside perspective, can definitely help to kind of ground you in more realistic, more in reality.
So, being part of our peer support team, I always like to hear how other people do it. There's a wide array of potential possibilities for peer support. Are they more of just a background to where everybody knows that there's a peer support list and everybody's number is listed on there so they can reach out to potentially whoever they want to reach out to on that list? Or do you guys have more of an active system to where peer support members are keeping an eye out for people that might get back to back critical calls of something, and then you specifically try and reach out to those people?
So I'd say it's a little of both. We do have a list, and on our scheduling app, it has a little peer next to our name, along with like whether you have hazmat, tech rescue. There's
Yeah.
also a little peer identifier, so you can see it right there on the schedule. And also, you have a critical incident. We have our peer group text. We kind of not trying to overwhelm people, so there's not 10, 15 of us texting. We kind of decide, hey, to be the liaisons here, send the text out. Figure out what guys need. So it's both active and reactive. And, there's always rumors. We see guys at work, we live together 24 hours at a time, 48, 96 hours at a time. So you can tell when someone's off. A lot of times that's kind of how it happens organically. It's just like, hey, have you talked to so and so recently? I saw him the other day. He didn't necessarily look like his normal self. And then it sends a text. And whether that goes somewhere or whether that doesn't, that's just the beginning of the process.
Yep. Very cool. And that is the cool thing about peer support within that first responder space, is because we spend so much time together, like you said, usually very organic in how that happens. And that is typically the best way for it to happen. But we just need those people who are going to make sure that it does happen, right? That we aren't afraid to reach out and be like, hey man, who knows? Maybe it's really nothing. Maybe it was just an off day, a bad night of sleep or whatever. But if something is going on, I want you to know that like I'm here, and I would love to talk to you about anything that's going on. But obviously you weren't your normal self this morning or whenever it was. Yeah. Okay, good. So, do you feel like your experience with Get Fit has shaped like how you train recruits? When you send in those workouts that you were talking about, were they similar to what you're doing at Get Fit, or have you modified them slightly for the fire service?
So I would say they are get fit based and then modified to our equipment, our space, and our needs for the day. Like you said, we're having for us a heavy hose day, ladder day, RIT day. I'm not going to absolutely destroy them in the morning versus if we're doing EMS week, we can go a little harder if they have a classroom day. So tailoring each workout to their needs to get them where I want them to be at the end of the academy, but also taking into account what's going on later in the day and not trying to affect that. I think Get Fit, the biggest thing for Get Fit, I think that I use to approach recruits is meeting them where they're at. It's really easy to assume everyone is going to be right here on day one and going to be right here at the very end. But having that expectation, I heard a saying, don't quote me on it, but it just says expectations are pre planned resentments. So I try and come in with no expectations. And that first week for me, I always tell them I'm going to be a little more quiet than usual. I'm just going to sit back and kind of watch where you're at. And then because for me, I just want 100% effort. What's my 100% effort? Is it going to look like your 100%? Isn't going to look like someone else's. So figuring out what that looks like for everyone, making sure that I can get the best out of them and I'm not expecting something that's completely unrealistic.
Yeah. So give me a little bit for our listeners then who might not know Get Fit yet, but what is kind of the general philosophy of Get Fit and how they train?
Yeah, so Get Fit, we call it functional fitness, some fitness that can benefit you in every aspect of life. We're not going out there maxing out, lifting the heaviest weights on earth, but everything that we're doing is supposed to enhance your lifestyle. You know, our mission statement is enhancing using fitness to enhance whole health in the community. So just really trying to make sure that everything we're doing, enhancing the lifestyle of the clients. And for us, that could be a chipper style workout, Tabata, AMRAPs, like you name it, we have it in there. We have strengths programmed. Most of it's going to be station based. You can have a whole class together doing the same thing at once. Class can be split. You have 4, 5, 6 stations that you rotate throughout the workout. My workouts at the academy are pretty much run about the same timeline as Get Fit. The guys will come in, do a quick demo of the workout. We'll do a 5-10 minute warm up. Then we'll get into the workout. And workouts are anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes on our days where we can push it a little bit longer.
I like what you said about functional fitness for whole health. That really sums up kind of the philosophy of Get Fit in general. You know, for the listeners who don't know, I train at the local Get Fit here, or am one of the trainers here. And I agree, like moving into that space, it was really cool to see that it is the functional fitness and the community, the Get Fit philosophy supports whole health. So looking to meet people where they're at, not just on a fitness level. They do a really good job of creating that open community to where people are having more ongoing conversations. So it's its own built-in peer support because we see a lot of members helping other members that come in. So as a coach, makes it really easy for me to be more present and watch everybody, knowing that I've got a community that if they see somebody who maybe didn't understand the demonstration of one of the workout pieces, they're quick to jump in and offer some assistance with that as well.
Absolutely.
So when we're running these bigger classes, my span of control would most of the time be not great. Like one coach for 30 plus people potentially is a lot. But when I've got a community that I know is supporting each other and wants to make sure that everybody's being safe in that space, I know that I'm not going to have somebody who's going to be doing something completely wonky for the whole 30 minutes of that workout because I've got such a cool community there. And they support nutrition as well. So they're kind of looking at all aspects. And I know you're going to jump on a podcast with Hannah. Hannah and I are also going to sit down and we're going to do a combo podcast episode. So that'll be really cool
That's awesome.
to be able to talk about that, try and get fit into the community a little bit more and let people know. I mean, they already do that, but really, especially in the first responder space, because as we talked before this episode, I came from a CrossFit background, and I definitely don't want to take anything away from CrossFit because it definitely got me where I am today. And it's been extremely impactful, not only in my life, but in lots of people's lives. But there are a number of things that as first responders that we do or are more likely to end up with certain injuries because of the work we do, especially firefighters. We were talking about it, prone to shoulder injuries, right? We throw on our SCBAs, tack that shoulder down, and then we're doing overhead stuff. And so we just are more likely to end up with these type of shoulder injuries. And so Get Fit does a really good job of, we don't not train those things, but we are training them effectively and smart. You probably already addressed this a little bit, but in your experience so far, where do you feel like most recruits coming into the fire service struggle physically? And then how do you help them get dialed into that?
I think in the muscular endurance side, I think most people come in, you get the guys that can bench a brick house, squat a brick house. You get the guys that can run for days longer, faster than I ever could. But it's getting those two to meet in the middle, get them to where they have a good cardio base. They're strong enough to do all the tasks that we need them to do. They have enough endurance to be able to do it repeatedly, nonstop for long amounts of time. They have that core strength, the stability, help prevent the injuries, keep themselves upright. We're not always working in the ideal position to do what we're doing. So being able to support your body, support all your gear. Um, I think that muscular endurance side is where I would see most people have some deficits in the beginning. And the way I do that is just not programming the same thing again and again. I try and work out every workout I do. There's only one or two workouts that I'll run multiple times throughout the academy. All of my workouts are different. Every workout is tailored to, like I said, the rest of the academy or whatever they're doing the rest of the day, but varying up times that they're moving. We have short bursts, we have longer endurance bursts. We're using heavy weights, we're using body weight, we're using different modalities to train different areas of the body. So just trying to make a well-rounded athlete and make them generally good at everything, just like we are as firefighters.
Yeah, and those workouts that you do that are the same, I would assume my term for them is a benchmark workout, something that we can validate where somebody started at and see improvement.
Yep.
Are those the workouts that you program that end up being the same?
Yeah, so there's one leg workout that I'll do 2 to 3 times throughout the academy, and it's essentially a strength shipper. And there's 6 to 8 strength moves that they're knocking out 50 reps apiece. In between each of those strength moves, there's a list of cardio ab moves that I try and set the reps for about a quick 45-second to a minute burst of either cardio or an ab move. And I'll run that multiple times throughout the academy. The kicker with that is every 5 minutes, they're knocking out 50 air squats, starting at 3, 2, 1, go. So not only are doing the heavy strength, they're doing the cardio, they're doing those air squats, and if we're running for 40 minutes, there's 400 air squats. So the legs are pretty wobbly. I like to throw that one in beginning of the academy and then throw it in at the end and kind of see how much better they're feeling after. It's not that it gets easier. The recovery doesn't take as long for them after.
It doesn't have to be super technical, but when we have that one workout that we choose to have for that measure, it does allow us to show that our program is being successful. This is where everybody started at, and this is where everybody is finishing at. And I think you said it perfectly, that muscular endurance where we're meeting in the middle. And I don't know, what do you guys use for your entry level physical testing? Do you use CPAT down there or the
But
P?
we have our CPAT,
Okay.
and then with the academy, we're working on a test, nothing punitive, but just something to where I can have something measurable of saying, hey, this is where the guys started and this is where they're at. Actually, I found a FDNY podcast recently, and I've been down a huge rabbit hole with that. And so I was listening to their fitness assessment for the academy, and it's essentially just push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a run. And they have a point system for how they score recruits. And so we're talking about implementing something similar to that in our academy. Do it day one, and then do it, day before graduation day, right at the end.
Well, we'll have more of an informal conversation after this episode about what we're doing. But for listeners who have already heard this too, up here, we just created, we call it the FPFT, so Firefighter Physical Fitness Test, and had that validated. And now we have every department in the Valley here using it. I think we're going to see a shift more towards that. not taking away from the CPAT in any way, shape, or form, but that test was developed quite a while ago, and there's been changes in the fire service. And what we were looking to do is exactly what you were talking about. We had some of our endurance athletes that could come in, and all we originally had was a mile and a half run at and a half minutes. And so we had a bunch of people that could run that no problem. But then where we were missing was the strength side of things. And even when we implemented this test, our goal was not to have a bunch of hulks. We don't need that. That's not what the fire service is. We need a balanced version of that. And we can have people on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I'm interested to hear what you guys got going on up there.
So you kind of already alluded to what is your go-to workout, but since you're part of the engine ops cadre, what's your go-to drill for developing grit or even just seeing it?
I think grit for us, easy one is taking a 2.5, going up multiple stories, pushing line on that second, on that third story. We have our local regional fire training centers where our tower's at. We just built one actually on one of our sites, but that's the site we've used for a while. So when we're looking to, kind of break them off, get them working hard, get that heart rate up, make them tired, make them hot, make them sweaty, making them comfortable. Those 2.5 evolutions, rowing up the stairwell, flowing and moving through the building. Those ones will definitely test you physically, test you mentally, and those are good for building grit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we already talked about how you try and find balance within your family, but as somebody who trains both just on the fitness side of things outside of work, but then trains people at the fire department, it can be challenging at times to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and all of that, because sometimes those hours, those times that we put in can be really daunting. And then you're like, I am just mentally exhausted, even physically tired from being on my feet, coaching those movements. But how do you personally stay mentally sharp and grounded when doing that?
Mentally sharp, I'd say I'm a big reader. I read everything, fire books, life, leadership, a Star Wars book here and there. Um, so I like to read and read about, like I said, multitude of different subjects, keep every aspect of my brain kind of coordinated going forward. Fitness for me, both mentally sharp and staying grounded. There's nothing a good workout can't fix. Get out of your head for a second, just worry about the bar, the weights, whatever you're doing. Always helps you come back a little more clear headed, able to deal with stuff. And then my family, like we talked about earlier, having a 2-year-old, she doesn't know what's going on in my day. She doesn't know if I had the hardest day at work or the best day at work. She's coming home or I'm coming home and she's running up to me with a big smile and a hug. And that always helps you kind of come back to reality and
Yeah.
remember what's important.
Absolutely. They can hit that switch in an instant on both sides of things, but it is such a cool thing to see, like you said. And I've got a daughter, so I'm a girl dad as well. And just coming home and irritated about how something went at work for whatever reason. And she could care less about those things. And I could care less about putting them on her. But she's really good about reading me too. Sometimes they have some empathy for their parents in some way. At 4 now, my daughter, she'll approach me super excited. And even if I don't respond like I normally do in my happy, cheerful way, she'll be like, Dad, what's up? And it'll just be like, oh, I didn't have the best night at work, babe. And she's like, well, that's okay. We'll have a lot of fun playing today. And it instantly, right? It's like, yep, okay, you're right.
100%.
Let's make that shift. So it's pretty incredible to see with you and your wife both working shift work, having a 2-year-old, doing all these things that you do. How do you guys make sleep happen? Because that's huge for us as first
It
responders.
looks different all the time. My wife's pretty good about, she'll text, "How was your night?" A lot of our nights are bad, but that's what you sign up for when you want to go to a busier house. But she's pretty good about checking in, seeing how the sleep was the night before. Were you able to nap at all at work? And then kind of giving me some space when I come home, like, "Hey, do you need till noon? Do you want us to leave you alone? What do you need?" So she's really good about checking in with me and seeing where I'm at and what I need. And then vice versa for her. Like you talked about, she's on the night shift. So she came home this morning at 7 a.m. She helped me get Daphne ready for daycare. We got Daphne up and going and she went right to bed when I took her to daycare. And it looks different every week. Not every shift are you coming home just beat, wore down. Sometimes you get that unicorn shift where you come home and you are rested and ready to go, and that looks a lot different than when you're getting beat down. And same for her, but it's a constant adjustment and communication. Like I said, like just communicating and making sure you're on the same page.
Yeah, communication and flexibility, I think are the key takeaways that we can have with that, because so often we become very regimented in like how we like our weeks to kind of play out and look, and because everything typically gets scheduled. Our daughter has very specific days that she goes to daycare and school, and so we plan on those days and basically being there for my wife to be able to come home and sleep, or vice versa. And then also there's just times where that doesn't work out, and it has led to some frustrations at times, because it's like, babe, we both know how this goes. Unfortunately, I'm stuck here at work. Somebody else had another emergency. And yes, this is an inconvenience to us, but I'm going to have you be
Mhm.
flexible this morning. And on the other side, too, there's been times where I have to be extremely flexible and totally shift what my day is going to look like.
Yeah.
And yes, it
It
does.
is both a blessing and a curse when your spouse works, shift work, or as a first responder as well, knows exactly what the job entails, but it's going to have the same uh, accomplishments and the same frustrations that you have.
Absolutely. So this is kind of a two-part question. So husband, girl dad, still relatively fresh in all of this, but then combining that with the fire service. So how does that family combine with your family at the fire service is the first question. And then as Daphne grows and gets older, what do you want her to know about your story and sees you doing this fire thing and where you're at now?
So, and with the fire family and the fire at home, or the family at home, I think that Daphne is the one that loves it the most. She is, whether me and Shelby are FaceTiming, Daphne hops on, "Can I see the boys? Can I talk to the boys?" And she loves coming to work and seeing whatever uncle, I'm working with that day. My wife knows that I have a great support system at work as well as at home. So that makes it easier on her knowing, if I have problems at work, I have guys that are going to help me out. And our department is very welcoming family. We live a quarter of a mile from my station. But I love it. It's the best, but especially with having a little one and Shelby able to come down to the station whenever at a moment's notice. It's not really out of the way. Or, hey, I went to the store. I got you guys this. Drop him off at the station. So it's been a blessing having her so close, having those two so close. As far as Daphne, I would say that I just want her to know that mistake doesn't define you, and mistake doesn't have to be the end of the world. I was in my position in the immediate aftermath. I thought my world's over. The DUI is going to define everything I do from here on out. And in a sense, it does. But for me, it's a positive because I look at, if I didn't have that DUI, I would have made the change I did. I would have joined Get Fit. I would have met my wife. We met at Get Fit.
Okay.
I wouldn't have my daughter. I wouldn't have this job. So for me, it was the biggest positive now looking back on my life was that happening, all that clicking, coming into place, making that change because I wouldn't be where I am without it today. So just let her know that, hey, mistakes are going to happen and they don't always have to be negatives. They're just opportunities for learning, an opportunity for a change.
Awesome. So really integrating your family into your family at work. And that's huge. Thankfully, I think that's always been a pretty big part of the culture. I haven't really talked to anybody that has like, nope, I don't. My family stays at home and my family at work is completely separate. It does seem to be across the board that like we got to have that, and we love it anyway,
Yeah.
because it allows us, for one, to when we are gone for big chunks of time, that we still get that interaction with our family. The other thing is that because it ends up being more of a challenging schedule, especially for the little ones or for people who have spouses that aren't doing shift work and don't necessarily understand what that looks like, it gives them an understanding by bringing them in and seeing that when I don't answer a call at nighttime when you're getting ready for bed, like For one, that is the number one thing I look forward to at the end of the day, is doing that FaceTime with my wife and my daughter. But when I don't answer that, it's usually for a very good reason. And they get to see that in times where they come to the station and maybe we're having dinner at the station and we have to drop it and we have to run out on a call. They actually get to see the fact that this happens all the time. And then being able to describe to my daughter that this is what we do because we have this service to the community. We want to help people. They're having their emergency. We're there. And it just brings a better understanding to it. So very well said, Dustin. Honestly, in your life, you were essentially what you would describe as given a second chance. And you've really taken that and, for one, owned your mistake. You have turned it into a positive, but not just for yourself. You really do a good job of paying it forward, which I think is the other key takeaway for listeners to really grab a hold of is don't let it just be for you. When you have something that alters or changes what you thought your life was going to be, turn that into a positive, like you said, but then take that and pay it forward however that sparks for you. And for you, it was getting into fitness, giving back in that way, in a way that you already knew how, but then jumping right into that peer support team because you have something to offer with that. You've gone through some of these struggles, these tough times in your own personal life, and knowing that it's not easy, but now you're there for the other people that might be experiencing it.
Yep.
It could be new people coming into the fire service. It could be 20-year guys too, that just have never had something like that happen, but we're all there for each other. And so I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Do you have any advice for someone who might be in a dark place, who needs to hear that change is possible?
I would say that, for one, know that you're not alone. There's been someone in your shoes before, and there will be people in that same spot after you. So you're not alone, and there's always someone willing to listen, willing to help you out. All you got to do is talk to someone, and that can help out in so many different avenues. Just start a conversation, talk about what's going on. It's easy to beat yourself up when you're the only voice that hear and internalize things and want to separate yourself from others while you're dealing with things, but just talk to someone.
Dustin, thank you very much for coming on the podcast with me today. We're going to wrap up here. Final words for this episode. What I would say is I'm excited to see what you continue to do within the fire service. Look forward to potentially having further conversations between you and me and potentially some interactions. Maybe we can get together at some point. But for people who are listening to this episode and maybe today hit home for them and maybe they want to talk to you specifically, is there a way for people to get a hold of you that's not going to overwhelm you? Would that be through email, through social media?
Yeah,
Or
I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. Just look me up, Dustin Baisdon. Always happy to help, listen however I can.
all right, thank you very much for your time, Dustin, and we will talk again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Forging Wellness Podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit. Your support keeps this mission going. Want to help us grow? Consider making a donation. Every bit helps us bring more impactful content your way. Follow us on Instagram at Forging Wellness 208 and check us out on YouTube. Thanks for being a part of the journey. Keep forging your wellness, and we'll see you next time.